On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers almost attended a pool party they probably didn't want to go to, but they got it done, snapped their losing streak. Let's dive into it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Welcome into Locked On Cavs for Monday, February 26th. We're almost to March. Unbelievable. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. And Evan, before we get into the Cavs win, I want to ask you this. We're getting close to spring. Are you ready for spring? Are you ready for all that spring is going to bring basketball-wise, but more importantly, warm weather? Are you ready?
I mean, it was a bit of a tease last week when it was in the mid to upper 60s, so much so that I brought my golf clubs with me to Cavs practice. Then once that wrapped, I went to the driving range for a bit. But yeah, I enjoy warmer weather. I like having my windows open. I enjoy fresh air. I like not freezing when I step outside to like grab the mail or put something in my garage. I live not too far from the lake itself, so like any gust of wind is usually unpleasant at this time of year. So the warmer it gets, the better. And hopefully, Punxsutawney Phil was right, and we don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, I'm mostly ready for spring. I do. My
allergies won't be ready, but they'll suck it up.
That's what the medicine's for. All right, let's get into Cavs Wizards. Cleveland snaps a 2-game losing streak. Donovan Mitchell returns and by his standards at the very least, had a very quiet performance. But the losing streak's over. There's a lot of different angles of this game, Evan. I think a more eventful game than I think one might have thought, considering the Cavs are playing arguably the worst team in the NBA, a team that just got drubbed over a 2-game stretch coming out of the All-Star break, and are 3-24 at home and 9-48 on the season. Let's start with Donovan Mitchell, though, because I think that's going to be the headline. He returns after missing 2 games with an illness, only took 10 shots. Here are the players that took more shots than him in this game: Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley. Mitchell took the same number of shots as Caris LeVert. That just doesn't happen very often. And Evan, it's good that he was back. He did a lot of positive things, I think, overall. I think it feels like he's still lingering, being sick a little bit, if we're looking at where he might be on Tuesday or what's coming for him this week.
Yeah, You could tell he wasn't 100%. I think being away from the court wasn't ideal for him either, even though he was a guy who like would participate in shoot-arounds and things like that, and then, just wouldn't play because of his illness. But yeah, you could tell like he was a little rusty, a step slow, but in the event that like you're getting some pretty high-quality production from Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and Darius Garland, who I think had a very good game against the Wizards, you're willing to swallow the pill of Mitchell not shooting the ball more, especially when he is being productive and impactful in other ways, mostly just passing the ball, getting good looks to his open teammates. I believe he had 5 assists in the first half alone, which is pretty great if you're the Cavs. So yeah, you're willing to kind of take the lesser scoring impact if he's doing other things, and also he was still playing well all throughout too. So I think he'll be fine. They have tomorrow off, and then they play Tuesday against Dallas, and then on the road immediately after against Chicago in Chicago before they go on the road for a little bit longer after that. So there's some opportunities for him to rest and get right. And also, Mitchell's the type of dude to not really stay cold for too long. He'll probably heat back up sooner rather than later and be right back in the swing of things.
It helped, too, that in this game, I think a big reason why they win this game, why at one point they overcame a 14-0 Wizards run, Jordan Poole going off, all of the things that kind of broke their way. And I think based on recent performances, would have been the kind of thing that just means they don't win on a given night. Like that could have happened. That would have been an outcome here. They got so much at key moments and overall from different guys. Jared Allen had 22 and 12, had 5 assists as well. He was awesome. Even him left a few points on the board with some missed bunnies, but overall was impactful, led the team in scoring. This was the best, or at least the most efficient Karis LeVert game we've seen in weeks. 18 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists for Vert. Makes some shots, hit some threes, got to the line 6 times. Darius Garland hit 2 big threes in the fourth quarter as part of 17 and 7 night for him. And then I think really the headliner is Evan Mobley, heavily featured in the offense, heavily featured in the attack, had 21, 6 and assists, and 5 block shots on a 9 of 11 shooting night, was 3-6 from the line. So you got all these other big performances. Evan, do any of those other performances in any way speak to you in a major way, tell you anything about this game? Which of those performances to you really pops?
The Mobley one for sure, just to talk about that, just because he was pretty one-note and unremarkable the night before, and a pretty frustrating loss for Cleveland, and then he bounced back very nicely. He was kind of a non-factor against Philadelphia, which, if there was Joel Embiid on the floor, that would make sense, but there wasn't any Embiid. Instead, it was Tobias Harris and Paul, and Bo Bamba kind of just making life hard for Evan Mobley. But this was a really good bounce back game, and I think for people, they want instant gratification. They want these players to click right away. They want everything to be the way it was before the All-Star break, but there's going to be a bit of a gradual ramping up process, especially for a guy like Mobley, or even Darius Garland, who I'll touch on in a second. But both, he just played really well in this game and made a lot of big time blocks. And this is just a really good performance from him. But for me, Garland really stood out too, just because it's not just the fact that he had such high scoring numbers, took 9 3-point attempts, which Jackson Flickinger, friend of the program, pointed out is the most he's taken since December. And the most it ties the most he's taken all season long. So it's just nice to see Garland kind of taking those clutch 3-pointers. I think it was a really good play, or at least just how it played out. With Karis LeVert finding him at the top of the perimeter when he was driving to the basket, and Washington tried to wall him off from getting an easy look at the bucket. And yeah, it was just a good performance from some guys that kind of have been going through the doldrums of the post All-Star break, and a pretty jam-packed schedule. 5 games and 7 nights is no easy task, especially when you are a week plus off from basketball and then coming right back into the swing of it.
I think it's Mobley and LeVert for me. I think Mobley, for the starters, is being very heavily featured in terms of getting the ball at the elbow, getting the ball in the post. When there's a mismatch in Bilal Coulibaly, hope Bilal Coulibaly is okay after a very scary fall that ultimately sent him out of the game with a contusion. They're feeding him, and he is, I think, responding in a big way and looks assertive. He had a great finish early in this game with the left hand that is growth. And then I think for Karis LeVert, this is just the kind of game you have to get from Karis LeVert if you're going to get something out of him. The way he played against Philly and the way he's played in a bunch of games this year, and I think particularly of late, has not been good. He was 5 of 28 over his last 3 games before this. He was 6 of 10 here, almost got a triple-double. About as good as you're going to get from Karis LeVert. And you all kind of needed that on a night where Mitchell just didn't have it. And that's going to happen. It's going to happen in the regular season. It'll happen again before the end of the season. It could happen in the playoffs, and you just kind of need those guys to step up when your superstar isn't quite right. All right, after this, let's talk about toughness. We'll talk about how the Cavs, to me, showed us a little something about what's under the hood here by not folding when I think they could have. That's coming up after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Grammarly. Grammarly is the greatest way you can work with emails, reports, presentations that are all needed to get done to make things happen. Grammarly can help. 96% of Grammarly users report that Grammarly helps them craft more impactful writing. It works across 500,000 apps and websites. By understanding your writing in context, Grammarly provides relevant, personalized suggestions. They have tone suggestions that help you navigate even the most difficult work conversations. helps you save time with one click and go from editing drafts in hours to seconds. And it is the gold standard of responsible AI with 14 years of experience in just about every IT certification under the sun. Grammarly is a secure AI writing partner that helps your team make their point and move faster. Make a bigger impact at work with Grammarly. Sign up and download for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's Grammarly.com/podcast. Easier said, done. All right, moving on to toughness. Evan, to me, 14-0 run. Jordan Poole just hitting shots from everywhere. Being a good version of Jordan Poole. I just thought that, handling that, ultimately winning this game by a comfortable margin, and really not just letting the game slip away from them when they could have. When I think in other games we've seen them just not be quite as sharp. Yes, it's the Wizards. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this game means that like any of the stuff that you're worried about with the Cavs just isn't an issue. But I think the fact that they did go through this 14-0 run, that they did not have a great Mitchell night, and that they did handle Jordan Poole going off and Kuzma having his moments and all of that stuff, I think that just is a reminder that I think this Cavs team, even if there's still more to prove, and in the playoffs, and I know that's where a lot of people's heads will go, and I know your head might go there as well. The fact that they do that tells me a little bit just about the fact that there's something there. There's some kind of toughness underneath there that helps you win a game like this.
Yeah, it's not like something you can palpably see or tangentially grasp at, like just looking at the box score or things like that. But there were moments that the Cavs were like the Wizards at one point led by 10 points. There's 10 lead changes overall. This game was tied only 4 times. And the Wizards were beating them in terms of bench scoring, fast break points, and that's pretty much it. But like the Wizards are finding ways to be annoying and pestering. I think the Jordan Poole party and the fact that Isaac Okoro wasn't able to shut off his water again was just, a constant thorn in Cleveland's side. I think same goes for Kyle Kuzma, even though he went 10 to 24 from the floor. He still had 27, 7, and 5. Like, that's impactful scoring to keep you in the thick of this if you're Washington. But I think, to me, I agree. Like, you saw a little bit of toughness. You saw this Cavs team, like, they aren't quite right when watching them. Like, they aren't running the front like they were during that hot streak, or they weren't kind of outright dominating teams on either end of the floor. They're kind of, ramping up production a little bit more and getting themselves maybe ready for the what the postseason may have in store for them. But it's going to be a process no matter what if you're Cleveland. And the fact that, they were not having the best night, like it was a frustrating game against a bad team. But the fact that they're able to dig deep and kind of just turn the screws a little bit is encouraging, to give you signs of the player or the team they were pre-All-Star break, and also just that it wasn't just like a flash in the pan. Like, this is really like an identity thing for the Cavs, and they're able to flip that switch. It just might need a little bit of time to warm up before they can kind of keep it permanently on.
Does anyone on this team, to you, Evan, exemplify kind of what we're getting at here in a way? Is there anyone on this team that when you think, okay, this person kind of exemplifies some of what the toughness of this team presents, some of the grit of this team? Is there anyone on this roster in particular that stands out to you in that way? I have 2 guys that aren't the stars that come to mind for me.
Okay, so if it's not the stars, like guys who give like an actual edge, like Max Strus is always going to be.
That's one
of my answers, just because like culturally, like he's wired a lot differently than most of the other guys on this team. Like, he doesn't mince words when he talks to the media or anything. But tonight was an example of his shot wasn't falling, and he'll admit, like, yeah, that's the reason why he gets paid the big bucks, but also he'll be quick to remind people that that's not the reason why he is in the position he's in either. Like, had some really big time assists, especially in the second half when he was connecting with Evan Mobley on a few different plays and passes. And yeah, Max Strus is just that guy that kind of gives the Cavs a little bit of grit, a little bit of edge, and also at least gives you the added luxury of having like a third ball handler in the starting lineup. And also just in certain lineups, he's that additional play creation that has really good on-court chemistry with the bigs, whether it's Mobley or Allen, to kind of get them the ball in the right spot so they get an easy attack at the basket. Or, if defense is overcorrect, it gives Strus a lot more of a wide open area to hit or to attempt and possibly make a three. What's one of your picks, though?
It's Strus and it's Okoro. Okoro is just unflappable. I think there are other guys on this team too that have a little bit of an edge. In like Niang, I think is like willing to mix it up, and we know that his leadership has mattered and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think it's Okoro and Strus to me as far as the role guys, and I at the top of the roster on the other end of it, I think it's Mitchell. It emanates from Mitchell more than it emanates to me from anyone else. I think we're seeing hints of it with Evan Mobley. I think with just the way he's playing and the aggression with the way he's playing right now. But I think if there's like three guys to me, it's the two role guys, it's Okoro and Strus that I think are just tough as nails, and I don't think they're flappable. And then star-wise, it's Mitchell, who I mean, aside from the Knicks series last year and maybe the year before where he just didn't play well or whatever, and I know there's a lot going on that Jazz team at that point in time, but that guy just is a really high-end competitor in a way that we know that about him. It's kind of like the defining thing about him in a lot of ways, that his motor and he has this ability to rev himself up. So just the DNA of this team feels just a little different. I think just A, maybe you're getting from Okoro this year versus last year, and B, just Strus and another year of Mitchell and all of that.
I agree with the the Okoro take first, just because like he is unflappable is a good way to describe him. Like it's a good one-word way to describe Isaac Okoro. Like the moments don't seem too big for him. He is very comfortable defending the best opposing perimeter player and kind of shutting off the water of that best opposing perimeter player. Like you saw him do it routinely against Damian Lillard when the Cavs played the Bucks 4 times this season. And I think showing that comfort and maybe just like he's willing to roll with the punches and know that he's going to be the lockdown point of attack defender guy really does set the tone, especially for like bench units or just like whenever he's on the floor with people, because like it is infectious. He does hustle, he plays hard, and like I think if you play any high of a team sport, like if that doesn't rub off on you or your teammates and you see somebody doing that, like you're playing the wrong game. But the Mitchell take's also a good one. I think, for me, it's just the fact that he is an MVP caliber player. He's having an MVP caliber season. He is one of the best players at his position. He's the best player on the Cavs, and he is going to set the tone and example every single night for Cleveland. Like he is going to be the one that has to like shoulder the load. And like tonight was the night where his shot wasn't falling. As we've said several times now, like he was 4 of 10 from the floor, but he's still trying to make winning and impactful plays with the assists and, kind of playing through a lot of the foul trouble he was dealing with all throughout the game. So it's a shot in the arm just to have him out there, but the fact that he's still like trying, despite like maybe his shot just not going the way he wants it to, is impactful no matter what.
All right, after this, role guys. Who do we actually trust? Who is actually worthy of being trusted right now? We're heading into the stretch run. We're headed towards the playoffs. Let's get into that. I want to remind you, too, that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of the Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today at YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24 streaming channel. Today's episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist to understand your style, size, and budget. They do all of the shopping for you. It is the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist who helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. You give your stylist a size, a budget preference, and all of that. You order boxes when you want them and how you want them. No subscription required. And they send 5 just for you pieces out for recommendations and pro styling advice. You keep what works and send back the rest. The stylist sends just the right pieces. The fit is on point. It's like they have style ESP. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. Shopping can be such a pain, and they save you time and effort, and you get outfits that make you feel good and look good. Style that makes you feel good as you look good. Get started today at stitchfix.com/locked. If you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. That's stitchfix.com/locked on. Stitchfix.com/locked on. All right, Evan, let's look at the role guys. So Garland's out of this conversation. Allen's out of this conversation. Mitchell, obviously, and Mobley. Those 4 guys off the table. I think the lock of this group, I think I have 2 like just bona fide, if I'm building an 8-man rotation that I feel really good about. The 2 guys that are just locks are Okoro and Strus to me.
I would agree. I think my 3 locks, I'll go one further, is Okoro, Strus, and LeVert, just because, at least to me, like I see people complaining, playing armchair coach on X.com. Why just like get like a quick temperature check of what people are talking about, just maybe like they're seeing what I'm not seeing at this point. But people are like, oh no, JB needs to like give less minutes to LeVert and more minutes like Sam Merrill or Dean Wade or something like that. But when he's on and when he's comfortable, and I think you're willing to have to, LeVert is a very impactful player, especially as Cleveland 6-man, and you have to sometimes, not sometimes, you do have to roll with the bad to kind of get back to the good, and you have to roll with just some of the punches he may give you. And I think a lot of it is trust too, like just looking at how this team works. Like I think through the lens of JB Bickerstaff, and like it's clear he trusts LeVert, he trusts Strus, he trusts Okoro. Those are all guys that play heavy minutes every single night, and I think those guys are just like the clear 3 role players that have penciled themselves in behind Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen as like your 1 through 7 mix and match, plug and play rotation people that we'd use in a high intensity situation, i.e. like a playoff series.
LeVert's like a tricky one to me because I understand like what you're saying. The argument for him, I think, is there. I just think 2 things kind of about what he has been. Number 1, he's in a funk right now, and I think that is certainly shading this. Number 2, what he is best at to me is just ultimately, I don't think it's as valuable to the Cavs when they are fully healthy as it is when one of the guards is out. Like his best use, I think, as a player is eat some innings for you, eat some ball handling responsibilities, all of that. I think when your team is just built around 2 guards like this, I have like a harder time figuring out like how he can kind of consistently stay in the flow. And I also just like, I don't think he would be in my 5. If I'm closing a game,
oh no,
I want Strus or Okoro just ahead of him. Like I just do. Like the Philly game, which we didn't talk about. Okoro should have, to JB's credit, he put Okoro back in for LeVert. I thought that was the right call. He should have done it 3 minutes earlier because LeVert just didn't have it in that game, and Okoro absolutely did.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, if he's hot and he's on, you don't obviously bench Karis LeVert because he can get you pretty quick and easy buckets, and that's, something you can never or should never really suppress if you're a team. But if it's not working, if it's not clicking, it's clear like he's kind of getting cooked defensively, or when he's on defense. Yeah, you lean to Isaac Okoro because he is your best perimeter and point of attack defender, and that's usually the deciding factors. Like he can make big time when he plays. Like the Sixers shout's a really good one where in that situation you're assuming Tyrese Maxey is one of the closing players for Philly. You put Isaac Okoro on him and match him minute for minute, or to harken back to the 4 games they played against the Bucks, like in closing moments Isaac Okoro was defending Damian Lillard. Sure, he was starting for those games because Darius Garland wasn't available, but even if this team is fully healthy, like you want to make sure you have your best point of attack and perimeter defender locking down the opposition on the perimeter, and that's what Okoro does best, and he's the best at it on the Cavs and one of the best at it in the NBA. That you don't want to really throw that to the wayside, especially because that can decide a game or 2 in a playoff series, or just like in a game where maybe the Cavs don't have it, but they're able to get just enough juice to win the game. Having a guy like Okoro to lock down an opponent on the perimeter or just in space makes it a lot easier if you've clawed all the way back into a game to try and win.
So then let's go to Niang and Dean Wade.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, Evan, both of us, I think that Wade is the more well-rounded player.
Correct.
Better defender, not as willing of a shooter, but about even as a shooter. I think better on the year percentage-wise.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly feels like George Niang is just more of a JB guy than Wade is at this one, based on just their minute totals and where this is headed.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of it is Niang isn't as gun shy as Wade is. Like, I know Wade only played a hair less than 8 minutes against the Wizards and was 0 of 1 from the floor, with that one attempt being a shot attempt being a 3-pointer, whereas Niang was 3 of 6 and he went 2 of 4 from the perimeter. And I understand the thought process of taking a step back offensively to make a much bigger improvement defensively by having Wade out there instead of Niang. But if the thought process is like, okay, we're always going to have one of Jared Allen or Evan Mobley on the floor, and maybe you have Isaac Okoro mixed in there as well, then you also have Donovan Mitchell, who's been playing better defensively since coming to Cleveland. You're willing to kind of take that gamble of a defensive downgrade for an offensive upgrade, because Niang does give you that spacing, he does give you that stretchability. Yeah, he is a bit up and down this post All-Star break, and even leading into the All-Star break wasn't shooting the ball great. He even said like he stinks right now. But I just think when it comes to guys like that, like they can find hot and cold streaks pretty easily, and then you have to kind of try and find consistency. And we talked about this coming into it, but like JB said that he's going to utilize the last 20 or so games as a gradual ramp up to the postseason so that the core guys in this rotation will be able to handle heavy minutes come playoff time. And at least for me, through these first 3-ish games or so post All-Star break, like it's clearly the starting 5, LeVert, Okoro, Niang, and then maybe Wade or Merrill can get some opportunities just to round things out minutes wise. But JB's a guy that leans on vets a bit more, and I think, again, you're willing to make that offensive sacrifice, or sorry, the defensive sacrifice to get a huge upgrade offensively. In certain lineups, you're utilizing Wade. Now, yeah, you don't want him defending Tyrese Maxey in isolation like he did against Philly the other night, but you also have to kind of get a little bit more creative as well as a coach and as a staff to maybe scheme up the defense a bit more to kind of prevent some of those easier switches or forced switches that teams are going to do when Niang's out there, because especially in the playoffs, like teams are going to be licking their chops if George Niang's out there. They're going to force him to defend somebody in isolation and get an easy bucket from it.
The last guy that I just want to make one small point on is Sam Merrill. I think I watched this game, Evan, against the Wizards, and thought there was actually probably room to just loosen things up by having Merrill on the floor. I do think things have felt a little more clogged as everyone's gotten healthy, and Merrill's kind of being relegated to cameo queen status is, I think, part of that. I will also say this. I can understand not playing him. I'm not going to say that I think it's like he's like a lock that has to be in your top 8. I do think there are other coaches who would just force him in there, would be the way, who would just say, like, gotta play this. I think there's other circumstances where that guy just is in your 8-9 man rotation and is still playing 15 minutes a night, and maybe the starters just aren't, playing as much.
Yeah, and the tricky part with that is I do understand, like, because JV's been asked about this in the past, the reason why he doesn't give a certain player more minutes, and usually his quick response is he's like, well, it's not fair to that guy because we're like, oh, hey, we're going to call on your number after you're not playing you as much. But like, yeah, you have to be a little bit more creative rotation wise and scheming wise to maybe find those opportunities and open up minutes and options for Merrill to get cleaner looks early in the game to see if he can be a guy who stretches out the floor a little bit more and unclogs things. Because I do agree, like, it has been a little bit muddied up without Merrill getting as heavy a minutes as he once was. But I don't know. We'll see. They still have quite a few games left until the playoffs actually start. But I also agree with you. Like, Sam Merrill's not like the linchpin for this entire thing. Like, you're not like trying to scramble the entire rotation just to find minutes for Sam Merrill when there's maybe other guys you'd rather get those minutes so that they can physically ramp up their production and also just be comfortable with the probably much heavier minute loads come playoff time.
Yeah, and even with all that, I would still I'd like to see him play more, I think, is where I'm at.
I'm indifferent to it. I really don't think it's going to make or break the games for the Cavs. Like, I agree. Like, yeah, the 6, 7, 8 minutes he gets probably isn't enough to really get a full scope of what he's doing, or what he's able to give you that night. But I'm also just like, there's bigger fish on this team. Like, you want to get Darius Garland as many minutes as possible just so he can get his legs back underneath him as he ramps up his production. Donovan Mitchell's rusty, clearly, after post All-Star break and missing 2 games. Like, he needs to kind of get back in the swing of things. And And a much more aggressive Evan Mobley is something I'd rather see more of than sacrificing more of those minutes or someone else's minutes to like allow Sam Merrill a few more shot opportunities.
No, I think that's all right. I think that the only thing that I would say is that what worked for this team over that winning streak was, frankly, just a lot of three-pointers. 43 three-pointers, like 44. Here since the All-Star break, 22, 27, and then tonight was 32. That was the high. Over the run they had, they didn't the lowest number they took over that run was, tell you that, it was not as low as 32. Like there's just something, and I don't know exactly how to like put my finger on it just yet, considering it's just 3 games since the All-Star break and there are other positives we're seeing. There's just something to me in like maybe the identity that led them to where they got is now kind of changed a little bit, and I wonder if there's just something lost there. That is just, I don't know how true that's going to be. It's just my head. It's a thought percolating in my head.
They've taken significantly less threes post All-Star break, and now that like Garland and Mobley fully back into the rotation, and maybe that is part of the figuring out process, is getting those two much more comfortable in a faster paced offense, and also just a team that is more fire away from 3-point range. But I don't know. I also thought during it, like, do they cut back on the attempts and try to become much more efficient on those looks? Like, yeah, that's definitely the objective. It's just, trying to get to that point is hard.
Yeah, it's not easy. All right, we're going to end there. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. Thanks again to Jake Stevens, as always, for his work on production. We'll be back with you on Tuesday. I'll be here with Bill DiFilippo from Dime. He has a new post up over there about the 3 most important players down the stretch of the NBA season. There's a Cavalier on that list. He wears number 10. It's Darius Garland. We're going to talk about DG with Bill on the next Lockdown Cavs. Tune in then. Have a great rest of your day.